Well, the big one is the repetition
Mm,
because of the way the subconscious protects us and tries to identify the bigger herd. Confusion
mhm,
is a big one. I mean, you did mention that. You said it was kind of a confusing time. Everything wasn't making any sense.
mm,
Confusion is another big weapon in
mm,
psychological operations because if you can confuse the person, see, all the rational and higher IQ functions, again, are in the prefrontal cortex just behind the forehead. And if you can confuse a person, and scientifically, confusion is about trying to launch in ideas that don't make any sense.
Face
So,
masks.
yeah, well, face masks outside, or even basically, let's say, we'll take a basic one, and I'll tell you how scientifically it works to disable your thinking and why they want to disable your thinking. So, you could go to a restaurant eventually, but you'd have to wear the mask,
Mm,
and then you could enter, but you could sit down.
yeah.
So what that sort of implies is that either the virus has a tape measure where the viruses can measure where you are before they attack, or none of this makes any sense.
Mm,
So when you watch like sound waves on an oscilloscope, like when at a music where they're recording music, and you see the sound waves, they have troughs and peaks. Well, you can put sound waves into something very similar to an oscilloscope,
mm,
not sound waves, brain waves.
mm,
And if you have one brain wave that says, look, I got to wear a mask walking into a restaurant, and the next brain wave is about sitting down and taking the mask off, they're actually the opposite waves.
mm,
So they have opposite peaks and troughs.
mm,
And if you go to an oscilloscope and you have what's called destructive interference, which means you have opposite waves come in and then make contact in the oscilloscope, what you'll see is a flat line.
mm,
So they don't cross over each other, they're destructive to each other.
yeah.
And a flat line in the prefrontal cortex is a cessation of thought,
Mm,
which means, and psychologically, in brainwashing and mind control, you want a flat line inside the prefrontal cortex because at that point the whole neurological system will recognize it. It does happen. It's not like the neurological system is freaking out. It has a secondary defense system if the prefrontal cortex is down, but the secondary defense system is do as you're told,
mm,
right? Because you can't think your way out of this. So just do as you're told. So there were so many confusing things. I mean, what about the curfews? The virus had a watch. It could attack
mm,
at 10:01 p.m. in the curfew zone, but it won't attack at 9:59. Or it's got one of those number counters at a bar. It's going to attack in a group of 11, but not in a group of 10. At first, Anthony Fauci came out saying, don't wear any masks.
mm.
And then all of a sudden it was one mask. And then he came on and said two, and he put two on. And I knew what's going on is that
Mm,
this is all documented by a master psychologist called Dr. Joost Merloo, Joost Merloo. You can find his book Menticide and the Rape of the Mind free on the internet, where he talks about this. He actually said confusion is a necessary ingredient for effective mind control.
mm,
So, and then Fauci, he went for the two masks, but there were other government officials that took it to a higher level, heard that Fauci endorsed two masks, and then other officials came on with three masks and even four, depending on which country you were in and what circus show you were watching. And in the realm of using confusion to gain traction in a mind control operation, you don't just stick to that particular circus tent. You confuse them with everything, and this is where men started doing. Men dressed as females were doing powerlifting competitions. They were winning swim races. They were going into female bathrooms. And in Calgary, there was a meeting of the YWCA, which means Young Women's Christian Association. So you're supposed to be a woman. And the keynote speaker at the event of the year in Canada for the YWCA was a man dressed as a woman. And they said if you didn't endorse the man dressed as a woman as the keynote speaker at a female Christian event, that you weren't progressive on being a feminist. So if you were confused, it was because you were supposed to be confused, because it changes your brain function and makes you more prone to obey command from perceived authority.
Thanks for watching this video on our YouTube channel. If you want to listen to the full episode, you can do by subscribing to the Radical Health Rebel podcast using the QR code on the screen. Or if you, like me, you prefer to watch the full episode, you can subscribe to our Substack using the QR code on the screen right now.